Hey everyone, it's Kaylee. Before we get into this, I want you to do me a little favor. Go ahead and hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. It really helps more than you know. And while you're at it, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. It's always so amazing to see how far these stories travel. All right, so let's get into it. Have you ever had a moment where your entire world just stops? I mean, the air gets thick, the sounds around you fade into a dull hum, and everything seems to move in slow motion? That was me. Standing at the entrance of the grand ballroom, a place practically dripping with gold and champagne, a place that was supposed to represent everything my husband and I had built. Except I wasn't on his arm. I wasn't even supposed to be there. And he was on the other side of the room, laughing, with his hand resting on the small of another woman's back. A woman who glittered, all sharp angles, and a smile that looked like it had been bought and paid for. And in that moment, as I watched him, the man I had spent a decade supporting, the man whose empire I had helped build from the ground up in our tiny apartment, I didn't feel anger. Not at first. I just felt a profound, hollowing silence. It was the sound of my old life dying right in front of my eyes. And the scariest part? I knew I was the only one who could hear it. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that this wasn't an ending. Oh no, this was the beginning. My beginning. You see, for 10 years, I wasn't Kaylee, the woman I am today. I was just William's wife. And for a long time, I thought that was enough. When we first met, we were just two kids with big dreams and not much else. We lived in a cramped apartment that always smelled like burnt coffee because we were constantly pulling all-nighters. He had the vision, the charisma. He could walk into a room and sell an idea with nothing but his words. But I was the one behind the scenes. I was the one who spent hours researching markets, who wrote the business proposals he would later present as his own, who balanced our tiny budget so we could afford to keep the lights on while he chased investors. I remember one night, he came home completely defeated. A major investor had pulled out at the last minute. He threw his briefcase on the floor and just sank onto the sofa, head in his hands. He was ready to give up. I spent the entire night with him, not just comforting him, but working. I stayed up until 4 a.m. restructuring our entire financial model, finding a new angle, a new pitch. The next morning, I handed him a fresh folder with a new plan. He barely looked at me, just grabbed it and walked out the door. 2 days later, he landed a deal twice as big. When he came home that night, popping a bottle of champagne, he said, "I did it, Kaylee. I pulled it off." He never once mentioned the work I had done. He never said, "We did it." And the worst part is, I let it slide. I smiled and told him how proud I was of him. I thought my role was to be the support, the silent partner. I thought his success was my success. As the company grew, we moved out of the tiny apartment into a sprawling house. The burnt coffee smell was replaced by the scent of expensive leather and fresh flowers. But the bigger our world got, the smaller I felt. William started saying things, little comments that chipped away at me. He'd say, "Kaylee, that dress is a bit, simple for this event, don't you think? Or maybe you should just let me handle the business talk, honey. It can get a little complicated." He wanted me to be a pretty quiet accessory on his arm, but I wasn't built that way. I had opinions. I had ideas. I saw flaws in his strategies that he was too proud to admit. The real turning point, the moment the cracks started to show for me, was about a year before the big party. He was being featured in a major business magazine. It was a huge deal. The journalist came to our home to interview him. I was so excited. I thought, finally, he'll talk about our journey, about how we started this together. I sat in on the interview, and when the journalist asked him about his early struggles, he told the story of the investor pulling out. But in his version, he was the lone hero. He said he locked himself in his office for 48 hours and single-handedly came up with the winning strategy. He told my story as if it was his. I just sat there, smiling, feeling my insides turn to ice. He was erasing me from our own history. After the journalist left, I confronted him. I wasn't angry, just hurt. I said, "William, why didn't you mention my help? We did that together." He just laughed, a short, dismissive laugh. "Oh, Kaylee, come on. It's just for the story. It sounds better this way. Lone genius battles adversity. It sells magazines." He patted my cheek like I was a child. "Don't worry your pretty little head about it." That was the moment I knew. That was the moment I understood that he didn't see me as a partner. He saw me as a placeholder, someone to keep the home running while he conquered the world. After that, he stopped inviting me to important events. He said they were boring for me, that I wouldn't enjoy them. But I knew the real reason. I didn't fit the image he was building. I was the simple, ordinary wife, a reminder of a past he was desperate to outgrow.
So I started living a parallel life. While he was out at galas and networking events, I was at home. But I wasn't just sitting around. I started taking online courses. Finance, digital marketing, corporate law. I started reading every business book I could get my hands on. I was absorbing knowledge. Quietly, secretly. I was preparing, though I didn't even know what I was preparing for. I just knew I couldn't be that invisible woman anymore. I needed to find myself again. Then came the invitation to the company's annual gala. It arrived in a thick, cream-colored envelope addressed only to him. I knew I wasn't invited. He didn't even have to say it. That night, he was getting ready, putting on a tuxedo that cost more than our first apartment's rent. He turned to me and said, "Don't wait up for me." He didn't even kiss me goodbye. He just walked out, leaving me alone in that huge, empty house. And as I stood there, listening to his car drive away, something inside me just snapped. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was a quiet, cold certainty. I was done. I was done being his shadow. I was done being erased. I went to my closet, not the one filled with the simple dresses he approved of, but the one in the back where I kept the things that were truly me. And I found it. A stunning black and gold dress I had bought months ago on a whim. A dress I never thought I'd have the courage or the occasion to wear. I put it on. I did my hair, my makeup. I looked at the woman in the mirror, and for the first time in years, I recognized her. And I knew exactly what I had to do. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to crash his party. Walking into that ballroom felt like stepping onto a stage. Every head turned. You could feel the whispers ripple through the crowd like a wave. Who is that? Is that William's wife? I kept my head held high, my steps even and deliberate. I could see him across the room. The shock on his face was almost comical. It was a look of pure disbelief, as if a ghost had just walked in. The woman on his arm, Vanessa, looked confused, then annoyed. Her grip on his arm tightened. I didn't go to him. That would have been too easy, too predictable. Instead, I walked over to the bar, my posture calm and collected. As I ordered a glass of champagne, I felt a presence beside me. I turned, and it was Daniel Foster, one of the most powerful investors in the city, a man William had been trying to impress for years. "Kaylee," Daniel said, a warm smile on his face. "I had no idea you'd be here. It's wonderful to see you." I smiled back, a genuine smile this time. "Daniel, likewise, I wouldn't miss it." William was watching us, his jaw practically on the floor. He couldn't understand it. How did I know Daniel Foster? He didn't know that for the past 6 months, I had been part of a private investment group, one that Daniel also belonged to. A group where my insights on emerging tech markets were not just heard, but respected. "I have to say," Daniel continued, lowering his voice slightly, "I've been hearing amazing things about your new venture, Sullivan Digital. You're making some serious waves." Before I could respond, another voice joined us. "I told you she was brilliant." I turned, and my heart gave a little flutter. It was James, tall, kind, with a smile that always reached his eyes. James was my business partner, the co-founder of my company. He was the first person who saw my potential, who didn't see me as William's wife, but as Kaylee, a sharp, intelligent mind. He gently placed his hand on the small of my back, a gesture of quiet support. "We were just talking about you," I said to him, my voice steady. From across the room, I could see the color drain from William's face. He was seeing his simple wife being celebrated by a man he revered and standing confidently next to another man who clearly adored her. His entire world was tilting on its axis, and he didn't know why. He saw that I wasn't just surviving without him, I was thriving. And in that moment, I wasn't the one who was invisible anymore. He was. He started walking towards us, a storm brewing in his eyes. Vanessa trailed behind him, looking furious. This was it. The confrontation I knew was coming, but I wasn't scared. For the first time in a long time, I held all the power, and I knew exactly how to use it. William stopped in front of us, his face a mask of confusion and anger. He completely ignored Daniel and James, his eyes locked on me. "Kaylee," he said, his voice low and tight, "what are you doing here?" I took a slow sip of my champagne before answering, letting the silence hang in the air, letting everyone watch. "I believe I was invited," I said calmly, though I knew my name wasn't on the envelope. "This is a company event, after all, and as I still technically own a significant portion of the foundational shares, I felt it was important to attend." His jaw tightened. He had always handled the finances, the legalities. He probably assumed I had never bothered to read the fine print of our initial incorporation documents, the ones that I had actually drafted myself 10 years ago in our tiny apartment, the ones that made me a legal, if silent, partner. Vanessa, his glittering trophy, stepped forward. "William, who's this?" she asked, her voice dripping with disdain, though her eyes held a flicker of insecurity. Before William could answer, James extended his hand to her. "James Maxwell," he said, his tone polite but firm, "I'm Kaylee's business partner." He put a subtle emphasis on the word business, a deliberate move that was both professional and a clear boundary. William's gaze flickered to James, then back to me. The question was burning in his eyes. Who is he? But he didn't ask. He was too proud to show that kind of vulnerability in public. Instead, he tried to regain control. "We need to talk," he said, grabbing my arm. I didn't flinch. I didn't pull away. I simply looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face with a look of mild surprise, as if a stranger had just touched me. "I don't think we have anything to talk about, William." I gently removed his hand from my arm. The act was so simple, so quiet, but in that crowded room, it felt like a gunshot. I had never defied him like that before. "Don't cause a scene, Kaylee," he hissed, leaning closer. "A scene?" I let out a soft, almost amused laugh. "You think my presence is a scene? William, look around. You're the one whose world is unraveling. I'm just here." And that was the truth. He was the one who was losing his composure. His carefully constructed image was cracking. The powerful CEO, the man in control, was being publicly challenged by the wife he had tried so hard to hide. People were watching. Investors were watching. Daniel Foster, ever the diplomat, cleared his throat. "Well, Kaylee, James, it was a pleasure. We must discuss that new project next week." He gave me a knowing look, a small nod of solidarity, and walked away, leaving the four of us in a thick, unbearable silence. Vanessa looked from William to me, her eyes narrowed. "So this is her," she said, the realization dawning on her. "This is the ex-wife." "I believe the term is wife," I corrected her gently. "The divorce papers haven't been finalized, a small detail William seems to have forgotten to mention." William's face went white. He had told everyone we were separated, leading them, and clearly Vanessa, to believe it was all but over. But the legal ties, the ones that connected me to the company he so proudly called his own, were still very much intact. "That's enough," William said, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "Let's go." He tried to lead Vanessa away, but she stood her ground, her arms crossed. "No," she said, her eyes fixed on me. "I want to know what's going on." And in that moment, I almost felt sorry for her. She was just another piece in his game, another person he was using to build his image.
I gave her a small, sympathetic smile. "You should ask your partner that," she said. "He seems to be the one with all the secrets." I then turned to James. "Shall we get some air?" He nodded, placing his hand on my back again, and we walked away, leaving William and Vanessa standing there amidst the ruins of their perfect evening. As we walked towards the terrace, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel his eyes on me, burning with a mixture of fury and a new, terrifying emotion for him: respect. He had underestimated me. He had discarded me, and now he was finally seeing the woman I had become, not in spite of him, but because of him. The party was over for him, but for me, it was just getting started. The days following the gala were a blur of activity. My company, Sullivan Digital, was inundated with calls. It seemed my little public stand had made an impression. Business leaders who had once barely given me the time of day were now eager to work with the woman who had so calmly upended William's world. It was strange. I hadn't changed. My skills hadn't changed. The only thing that had changed was their perception of me. I was no longer an invisible extension of my husband. I was a power player in my own right. William, on the other hand, was spiraling. I didn't have to look for the information. It was everywhere. His company's stock took a small but significant dip. Whispers started circulating in financial circles about instability in leadership. His carefully polished image was tarnished. He tried to call me, of course, dozens of times. He left voicemails that ranged from furious and threatening to pleading and pathetic. I didn't answer a single one. I didn't listen to a single message. I instructed my lawyer to handle all communication. Answering his calls would be engaging on his terms, and I was done playing his game. My focus was on my work, on building my future. About a week later, I was in my office, a beautiful space with a view of the city that I had earned myself, when my assistant told me I had a visitor. It was Vanessa. I was surprised, but I agreed to see her. She walked in looking different. The flashy designer clothes were gone, replaced by a simple, elegant dress. The hard, confident mask was gone too. She just looked tired. "She's not here to fight," she said, her voice quiet. I wanted to apologize." I gestured for her to sit. "Apologize for what?" "For how I treated you at the party, for how I looked at you. I didn't know," she said, looking down at her hands. "He told me you two were long over, that the divorce was just a formality. He made you sound like you were nobody." "I know," I said softly. "That was the role he wrote for me." She looked up, her eyes filled with a sad understanding. "He's a liar, isn't he? He builds these perfect little worlds, and as long as you play your part, everything is fine. But the moment you don't, he tries to destroy you."
I just nodded. She had figured him out much faster than I had. "I left him," she said simply. "That night. I realized I was just another trophy for his shelf, and I'm worth more than that." "Yes, you are," I said, and I meant it. In that moment, we weren't rivals. We were just two women who had been deceived by the same man. After she left, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected. The final pieces of my old life were falling away, making room for the new. A few weeks after that, my lawyer called. "William is ready to settle the divorce," he said. "And he's not contesting your ownership stake. In fact, he's offering to buy you out for a very, very generous sum." I laughed. Of course he was. He wanted me gone. He wanted to cut the last tie, to scrub my name from the company's history for good, and he was willing to pay a fortune to do it. The old me, the woman who was scared and unsure, would have taken the money and run. It would have been enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life without ever working again. "Tell him no," I said. My lawyer was silent for a moment. "Kaylee, this is an incredible offer. Are you sure?" "I'm sure," I said, a newfound confidence in my voice. "I'm not selling. That company is as much mine as it is his. I'm not giving up my seat at the table. He can learn to live with it." It was the ultimate power move, and I knew it. Taking the money would have been an escape. Staying was a statement. It meant I wasn't afraid of him. It meant I was going to sit on the board of directors of his own company and hold him accountable. He had tried to erase me, and instead I was about to become a permanent, powerful fixture in his professional life. The first board meeting I attended was something out of a movie. When I walked in, the room went silent. The all-male board, William's loyal cronies, stared at me as if I had two heads. William sat at the head of the table, looking pale and thin. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I took my seat, opened my portfolio, and got right down to business. I didn't bring up our personal history. I didn't have to. I just brought my A-game. I pointed out flaws in their quarterly projections, proposed a new digital strategy they had completely overlooked, and questioned a risky acquisition he was pushing. My arguments were backed by data, by research, by an intimate knowledge of the company that no one else in that room besides him possessed. By the end of the meeting, the tone in the room had shifted. The other board members were looking at me with a newfound respect. They saw that I wasn't there for revenge. I was there because I was smart, capable, and cared about the health of the company. I was an asset. William just sat there, defeated. I had beaten him not by being louder or angrier, but by being better. Life, since then, it's been incredible. Sullivan Digital has become a major player in the industry. James and I are not just business partners, we're best friends, and our relationship is built on a foundation of mutual respect. He has never laid a hand on me in a romantic way, and I wouldn't want him to. My relationship with him is one of the healthiest I've ever had. I live in a beautiful apartment that I decorated myself, filled with things that I love. I travel, I meet interesting people. I wake up every morning excited about the day ahead. The lesson in all of this, the thing I really want you to take away, is that your worth is not determined by someone else's inability to see it. For years, I let William define me. I let his perception of me become my reality. I thought I was simple because he told me I was. I thought I was incapable because he made me feel that way. The moment I stopped listening to his voice and started listening to my own was the moment my life truly began. I had to be broken down completely to be rebuilt into the woman I was always meant to be. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can turn out to be the very best thing. Losing the life I thought I wanted gave me the freedom to build the life I actually needed. I'm not angry at William anymore. I feel nothing for him. He is a closed chapter in a book that I am still writing. And I can tell you, the best parts are still to come. So, that's my story. It's been a wild ride. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if this resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe for more, and tell me what you thought in the comments. I read every single one. What was the biggest lesson you took from this? I'd love to know. Until next time, remember to be the author of your own story. Thanks for watching.